Welcome back to Wednesday Night Live. Welcome to our last show until after the 4th of July. And by that I mean that since 4th of July falls on a Monday when we normally do our recording, you will next Monday, or next Wednesday, a week from this coming Wednesday, you will have a replay of tonight's program because we won't be able to record a program for you. But that being said, you're probably going to want to watch it again or send it to your friends or pull it up and study it or come up with some questions for me or whatever. Anyway, welcome back. Glad to have you here. As we do every week at this time, let me remind you about Compassion and Hope Pregnancy Center, a Christ-centered nonprofit ministry offering life-affirming alternatives to abortion and compassionate care to those who face pregnancy and abortion-related issues. And as I always say, it's that simple. This is a small organization of dedicated Christian people whose calling is to see that mothers are able to safely bring babies into the world and the babies are able to come in safely instead of by the alternative that we know is onerous at very best, and that is the abortion. So now, Compassion and Hope Pregnancy Center, you can call them at area code 208. I tell you about this every week. We have only one area code right now in the state, 208-478-HOPE. They could use your help. Won't you please give them a call and see how you can help them? Money's always on the table. You know, they still take greenbacks, credit cards, whatever you can do to help them. But there are other ways you might be able to help show compassion for a mother, pregnant mother, and a soon-to-be-born baby. And with that, we will move on. But it's been a very interesting, I don't know if that's the right word to use, but at least a week and a half now since the Orlando mass murders by the mad Muslim. And isn't it interesting that all of these mass murders we've been seeing are always by Muslims? If you listen to Obama, all gun owners are to be feared, and they're dangerous. And you can label them all as being dangerous because they're gun owners. But you can't label all Muslims just because a half a dozen here and there kill a whole bunch of people. You can't cast aspersions on the whole Muslim group. What a bunch of baloney. Hypocrisy running rampant. The Brits had the courage to exit the European Union, and I, for one, applaud them. Now, the stock market has really taken a drop. If you watch those things, you may be concerned. I'm not an economic expert, but I would say don't be concerned. There will be a period of adjustment. The British pound sterling is very strong. It was strong before the European Union. It's strong now. And it's, as was pointed out on a program I saw today, the Brits import more than they export. So they're not going to have to worry about getting in a spitting contest with the European Union. And really, folks, all this is all about power. A small group of elites, just like they do in this country, run the European Union from Brussels, and they decide what's good for everybody. Just like Angela Merkel decided that it was good for Germany to bring in 1 million Syrians who have already shown their attitude toward the German people by 1,000 rapes on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, what it was, and constant battles and just horrific things they've been doing to the German people, who welcomed them with open arms, balloons, flowers, and all that, and the Muslims. And as is characteristic of this religion that has been taught by Muhammad, the self-appointed prophet of Allah, the God that he elevated to godhood or to supreme godhood, that Muhammad teaches in Qur'an and in hadiths and just general stuff, that Muslims are the superior people. Now, it's not a racial thing. Don't mistake it. It's not a racial thing. It is a superiority of individuals or clan, or however you want to say it. The Quran and Muhammad, of course, as the single writer of the Quran, single author of the Quran, has declared that Muslims are superior to all other people, and therefore they can do whatever they want to all other people, including taking their country, raping their women, enslaving, pedophile, murder, beheading, killing homosexuals just because they're homosexual, any number of things. It's okay because Muhammad said so and it's in the Quran. Well, so a lot has been happening. So the Brits have exited the European Union, and now I understand there's some rumblings in Scotland and Wales to exit from Britain and rejoin, or not Wales, Ireland, and rejoin the European Union. That will be interesting in its own right. Ireland, interestingly enough, is the only nation in Europe that basically has no debt. They are doing astonishingly well, and there's a second anomaly that's happening in Ireland. Per capita, percentage-wise, Ireland has the largest number of Muslims in Europe. Really, for a tiny little nation that's only about 4 million people, they are overrun with Muslims, and they're putting up with it for whatever reasons. Probably for the same reason we're putting up with it, because we have the Mad Mullah in the ISIS safe house, also known as the White House, and he's telling us it has to be, and he continues using executive fiat to ram things down our throats. And our spineless Republicans, we don't expect the Democrats to do the right thing. They don't have it. We never expect anything good from the Democrats. Therefore, they can do whatever they want to, and we just say, oh yeah, that's the Democrats. But we somehow still have the mistaken idea that the Republicans are the knight on the white horse that are going to come to save us. And they're not. The Republicans are completely duplicitous in seeing that the Obamanist and his gang have run the country into the ground. And you've seen this, his stance on homosexuality and how he has opened Pandora's box on that, his stance on Muslims, with whom he surrounds himself in the ISIS safe house, also known as the White House. All levels of our government are rife with Muslims, and yet we're supposed to not even notice this. So I suspect that the Irish are being run by the rulers at the top, just like we're being run by the rulers at the top. And it doesn't just stop at the White House, of course, it comes to the State House and even locally. We got a lot of pandering to the Muslim community here because they have been a financial asset to Idaho State University, which is the #1 employer in this city. I think it's 3,500 or 4,000 employees. And so we have had this shoved down our throats. You've seen what's happening in Twin Falls. A horrible thing. And isn't it interesting, the apologists for the Muslims, now they're saying, well, let me back up. You remember what we're talking about is the 5-year-old girl, a baby, who is raped by 3 or maybe 4 Muslim boys, the eldest of which is 14. Now, the apologists for the Muslim community are quick to point out these are not Syrians, because the governor and his pals want to bring 300 Syrians into Treasure Valley, into Twin Falls, to work at the Chobani factory. Well, now, wouldn't it be nice if we had 300 Americans that could find jobs at the Chobani factory? And let me remind you again, getting a little bit off point, let me remind you that Chobani is a yogurt company run by a Muslim who has very publicly stated that it is his goal to become the #1 yogurt producer in the world, and to inundate us with Muslims that he wants to bring over here to make them. So let me remind you of this. You do not have to help him to prosper. You don't have to buy Chobani to satisfy your need for yogurt. Let me give you just a short list of other reputable, decent American and European countries that produce yogurt products that are just as good or perhaps better than Chobani, and they don't support the Muslims who are invading the world. Now they've all but taken over London and most of England. They've all but taken over Germany, Denmark. Norway has been fighting back, Sweden. Even the Swedes, just God bless them, the givingest people, I guess, in the world, who are taxed personal taxes of, for every man, woman, and child, at least 60%. So if they earn $1, American dollar, they get to take 40 cents home. And the rest goes to the government to see that they get their free everything. But of course, it's not free. But I digress. So let us do our part to see if we can put a dent in the owner of the Chobani Company's dreams of inundating certainly Idaho and any place in the country with Muslims. Here are some companies that make a fine product. Now, I'm not sure how you pronounce this. Fage, or Fage, F-A-G-E, Oikos, Tillamook, Yoplait, Danson. I don't think that's right. Well, you know who I'm talking about. Land O'Lakes, Zoe, and Gogurt. Those are just a few other companies, American companies, as well as the Dannon. Dannon is a French company. They all make fine yogurt products. Buy theirs. When you go by the Chobani, and unfortunately Ridley's, not Ridley's, but the big market across from Fred's, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on it, but you know which one I mean. It moved from where Ridley's is now, down below the Highlands. It'll come to me. Winco, my goodness. My wife was telepathing me. She does this when she sees me stumbling. She telepaths me. So we're mind melding. Winco has a huge Chobani display. Walk by it. Ignore it. Go over to the others, the Oikos and Fage and Tillamook and Yoplait and Dannon. Go there. Same when you go to Fred's. Same when you go to Ridley's. Go right by the Chobani products, ignore them, and get a product that is not supporting Islam, the Muslims, and the invasion. That's enough of my... Is it a boycott? Absolutely. I would say boycott anything that is produced by Muslims and brought into this country from anywhere, even if it's produced here. Now, this guy is an American citizen. He's a naturalized American citizen. He is a Kurd. He is a Muslim. He is a Kurd, and he started out like many Americans who have been successful, and he built this company. And that's the American dream. That's the kind of thing we like to see. But we don't like to see them use it as a knife in the back to the American people for supporting his dreams. And his dreams have gone from, well, we thought they were good when he got here, but they've gone to nightmare. So I can't even, I know he's a naturalized American. I cannot accept him as an American. Certainly I can't accept his products. Now, going back to what we were talking about in Twin Falls. So this little 5-year-old child is raped by these boys, and the apologist from California, from the CSI, the Community State of Idaho, what is it, whatever, CSI college, the community college, they're the ones who are bringing in these people, and they are quick to point out, these aren't Syrians. Well, no, they're Sudanese and they're Iraqi, and they were here brought in by these same people 2 years ago. But they are still Muslim. And now the Muslim apologists are saying, well, they didn't really rape her. Oh, really? Well, what did they do? Well, we know as a fact that I think it was the 10-year-old boy peed on her, peed in her face, in her mouth. This is already out there. It's also very interesting. I don't know if you saw this on the internet, if you watched that. There was a piece going around that was taken from the city council meeting, I don't know, a week or two ago, where one brave soul in the community had the courage, although the city council apparently viewed it as the audacity, the effrontery. This poor guy had the courage to face the city council and say, you know what, this is wrong. Not only do we not need these people here, but look what they're doing. And the condescending way that they treated him, the looking down their nose and, oh, you poor man, you just don't know, and basically blew him off. At that time, the police department was not saying anything. Pardon me, they had not released any police report. I'm not sure they've released one yet. But they were keeping it very hush-hush, supposedly because it was an investigation in progress, but also because they're all juveniles. And they're either 3, the story changes a little bit, it's either 3 or 4. But the 2 that they've held, the 14-year-old and the 10-year-old, have both been under seal. You can't get any information about this because they're juveniles. They have both been charged, I guess, in juvenile court. So it'll be interesting to see. Now, the apologist in the CSI college, the community college there, have gone out of their way to ridicule anybody who has the audacity and the effrontery to even mention this. Well, folks, it can happen here, and it has to some extent been happening for several years. Thank you to Dr. Velas and his econo-thugs at the university who put the $ before the community's safety and interest. They have gone out of their way to import Muslims to go to the university because, unlike the local kids who can get in for $3,500 or $4,000 a year, the Muslims pay $20,000 because they're out of area. I'm surprised they haven't given them in-area stipend or something. And so we've had numerous stories in the paper about what these people are doing. I'm using the word very loosely when I speak about them. But in the meantime, the Muslim community here is starting to build a little bit. It's something that we need to be aware of. We need to be cautious with them. We're Americans. We don't attack Muslims like they do everybody else. But we can certainly watch what they're doing, and we do not have to patronize them. If they have a business, it's not up to us to make their business succeed. What do we need to do to make them, why do we want to encourage them to even stay here? They don't fit into this community or any other Western civilized community. As I shared with you last week, of the 3 million plus Muslims in this country, according to a recent Pew Research report, at least a third of them think it's that they would like to, that it's okay to basically conduct jihad against America or anybody who doesn't agree with them. They would like to see, at least a third or more would like to see the implementation of Sharia in place of the Constitution. They've made it very clear that by the year 2050, this was a guy in Great Britain, a mad mullah by the name of Chowdhury. He's a despicable, disgusting, degenerate form of lifestyle apologist for the Muslims. And he made it very clear, and he was with a smirk on his face and looking right in your eye, that the Muslims in Europe, and this could be our fate as easily, the Muslims in Europe don't have to rebel or riot or anything else. They simply need to keep up breeding, as they are now, at a rate of 8 to 1 over the Europeans. For every 1 European child being born, 8 Muslims are born. And according to him, by 2050, they'll simply outvote the Europeans and take their countries. And then, of course, Sharia will be implemented, and God help the Europeans that remain. They won't remain long unless Islam submit. All right, well, let's move forward here. Now, in keeping with this, here's an article from Breitbart. Breitbart used to be a very conservative organization. When Breitbart himself died, things started changing. So you never quite know what is on their agenda there. But this was an interesting article from June 12th by Lana Shadwick. Obama administration's surge agenda threatening U.S. with 100 Syrian refugees per day. And by the way, if you didn't see it, let me just tell you that it has been reported that the Hildebeest, Hillary, has upped the ante on how many Muslims to be bringing in, especially Syrians, by 500 plus percentage points over what the Obamanist is doing. So Sheikh Obama wants to bring in 100 a day. That means she wants to bring in 500 a day. And she's made a public statement to this effect. By the way, did you see her the other day recently with Liawatha, also known as Senator Warren, Elizabeth Warren, the woman who, good Democrat that she is, good whatever that she is, lied about her ethnic heritage, if you want to put it in a racial thing you can, and said that she was an American Indian so that she could get preferential treatment to go to the university. And then she kept the lie going and kept pandering to the various Indian groups and all that, all the while saying that she was an American Indian to get preferential. She doesn't have one drop of Indian blood in her body, not one. So that's why I refer to her as Liawatha. She is a liar. But what better duo for the Democrats than to have the Hildebeest, who has never done an honest thing in her life, who lies when the truth would serve, who has betrayed her country over and over and over. And I'm not even talking about Benghazi. Go all the way back to when she was in the governor's house in Arkansas. She's a thief. She's a liar. She's a pettifogger, and quite possibly even a murderer. You know, her good friend Foster, who died under the most mysterious suicide ever known by man, where his body was in a perfect laying down position with no blood or anything, an astonishingly perfect, absolutely clean murder suicide scene. Anyway, so you've got the Hildebeest and Liawatha. What more could we ask? I mean, this is nirvana for every left-wing Democrat out there, or just plain Democrats, because they're all left-wing now. I'm not absolving the Republicans. We've got plenty to answer for. We have, right here in our town, we have a number of those who portrayed themselves as being conservatives and Republicans, who are basically Democrat in Republican clothing. And we've talked about that. We will talk about it as we near November, when the elections come up. I will tell you who, what, when, where, why, and how, and I will name names. I will tell you who to trust and who not. But at any rate, let's go on. So the Obama administration has created a resettlement surge center, which has produced a pouring of 100 Syrian refugees in the U.S. per day. The very real risk to Americans, the lack of proper vetting of these individuals by the quick processing that is being done, almost all of them reported to be Muslims. Now this is an interesting thing. Middle Eastern Christians, Jews haven't really been a problem because Jews will take aliyah and go to Israel. And so we haven't had many of the Jews from the Middle East trying to come in here. At least it hasn't been very publicly said. But there have been Christians, Middle Eastern Christians, who have been decimated by the Mad Muslims who murder everybody. Remember, the Muslims have been about murder since the day they were conceived. Since the Mad Mullah Muhammad started having his pipe dreams in 638 or whatever it was, 628, they have been about murder for 14 centuries. Now the Christians are being decimated in the Middle East, and the Obamianists will not give them any help. For every 100 Muslims that comes in, maybe one Christian might get in. I mean, it's very dire. They are decimating the entire Christian population of the Middle East, and Obama is complicit in this very thing. But going on. Over 100 Syrian refugees have been admitted every day in June, according to the federal government's own database from the Refugee Processing Center. More than 1,000 were admitted in May. The rate of those admitted has skyrocketed when compared to the 3,755 accepted in fiscal year 2006. I think that's supposed to be 2015. Well, the Conservative Review reported these numbers, and that approximately 100 to 250 were admitted during the first 6 months of fiscal year 2016. I guess they're talking about when the fiscal year begins October 1st of the prior year. So the fiscal 2016 started on October 1st, 2015. It noted that the Associated Press reported in April that the federal government set up a resettlement surge area in Amman, Jordan in February. The center is now interviewing approximately 600 people a day. The vetting process, already questioned by leaders in the country, has been fast-tracked from 18 to 24 months to just 3 months. Now, keep in mind that there is no way to know who these people are. They can say they're Jack Robinson, and you pretty much have to accept it. There's no way to go get records on them because everything's been destroyed. So they can say they're anybody they want to. And there have been some who have tried to become Christians and found out that because they were Christians, they weren't going to get to come in here, and all of a sudden remembered that they were Muslims. That's cute. All right, so we know that Sheikh Obama and his troops are doing their worst, if you will, to bring in as many as they can. And he's doing this, he's really working overtime to get this done before he leaves. Now, as you may know, there was an interesting decision or non-decision by the United States Supreme Court, I think it was on Friday, where a court case, I think it was from Texas, came up, and it was a challenge to letting the Mexicans, the illegal Mexicans, some 4,500 of them I think it is, be released into society, let them just come on in. And the Obamianists were doing their best to do that. Well, the Supreme Court, a lower court, a circuit court, had said, no, the Mad Mullah in the White House doesn't have that authority, and so he can't do it. So it was sent up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, in a 4-4 vote, said we don't want to bother with it, which means it goes back down to the circuit court and it stays as they decided it. So one brave attorney general somewhere fought the system and won temporarily. Unfortunately, today there have been severe losses to other parts of American society, not the least of which is abortion on demand. The abortion on demand was being challenged in Texas on a ruling that to protect the mothers. It was kind of interesting. You remember that before Roe v. Wade, the hue and cry of the left, the now people, was that there are all these back alley abortions happening and women were dying by the hundreds and thousands and so on and so forth. Later we found out that in the entire period of time represented, there was something like only 10 of these so-called back alley abortions where women died. And they died because somebody with a coat hanger or whatever didn't know what they were doing, and the women bled to death or whatever reason, infections, so on. Well, Texas said, look, if you want to have abortion clinics in our state, that's fine, but you have to have a real hospital within 30 miles of that abortion clinic with real doctors who have real certification, so that if something goes wrong, they can take that person to the real hospital. The Supreme Court said, no, 5-3. Supreme Court said, no, which in essence made a legal ruling by the Supreme Court codifying back alley abortions. I mean, that's just about, I realize I'm a wide brushstroke on it, but that's just about what it amounts to. Good old Supreme Court. In this case, 8 unelected people who are ruling the nation. And of course, our Congress stands with their hands in their pockets saying, well, we can't do anything about it. They're the Supreme Court. They have forgotten, the Congress, if they even know what their job is, have forgotten where their spine is or their cojones or whatever it is that they're missing to do their job. All right, well, let's move on to an article out of the Federalist, June 21st. And this has to do with something that's going on in California. Proponents of Senate Bill 1146, it's in California, say they need to give students grounds to sue religious schools for teaching their religion because discrimination. Whatever happened to freedom of religion? In a nutshell, what's happening is the Democrats, the left-wing progressive liberals, whatever they are, in California. Remember, that's a one-party state. The Democrats own the state. They have decided that you should not, if you're going to a religious school, like you're going to a Catholic school or a Lutheran school or a Baptist school, whatever it is, you should not be subjected to their religious teachings. Really? Why would you want to go to that religious school knowing that it's a religious school and that they have these things, you know, like prayer before school or teaching the Gospels or whatever it is that the leftists find onerous? There are many fine schools they could go to if they don't want the religious thing part of it. But in California, they're trying to make it so that a religious school cannot enforce its religious beliefs, cannot teach its religious beliefs without being sued by an agnostic or atheist or whatever who showed up in that school and decided he was offended or she was offended because somebody mentioned Christ to them. The world gone mad. This is a lengthy article, so I'm not going to try to read the whole thing to you. We may do this at a later time, but there is some opposition to Senate Bill 1146, and we don't know where that's going to go. But, well, you know, ever since Moonbeam Brown became governor again, and the Democrats, which is the state of California, have reelected him once or twice, I don't know. He's been governor. He was governor years ago, and then there was a streak of sanity where he wasn't elected, and then he got back in, and I think he's in his second term with the current administration. All right. All right. This is from KIVI News out of Twin Falls. Twin Falls PD, alleged rape committed by boys of Iraqi Sudanese descent. Twin Falls Police Chief Craig Kingsbury has confirmed that 3 boys who were allegedly involved in the rape of a 5-year-old girl in Twin Falls were of Iraqi and Sudanese descent, Muslims. At a press conference in Twin Falls, Chief Kingsbury addressed community members and the city council about the alleged assault and explained that 2 of the 3 boys involved in the incident are at a detention center following the crime. The boys are reported to have been in the Twin Falls area for less than 2 years. Chief Kingsbury was unable to confirm or deny if the boys are refugees. My information is that they came in as refugees, just like the Syrians that they're trying to get in now. The Twin Falls Police Department does not take allegations of sexual assault lightly, Chief Kingsbury explained at the press conference. The statement comes after allegations arose that the police department took over an hour to respond to the incident. Chief Kingsbury also went on to dispel the rumor that the fathers of the boys involved in the incident were high-fiving and congratulating the boys following the assault. We have no evidence that this occurred, Chief Kingsbury said. That's just like the non-evidence that, you remember when Trump mentioned about the high-fiving and the cheering and the celebrations in New York and in the United States when the Twin Towers came down, and he was called all kinds of nasty names by the usual suspects, the Associated Press, United Press International, New York Times, all of the usual suspects, Democrats, and lo and behold, some film surfaced showing exactly what he was talking about. And I don't know about you folks, but I remember it. I remember when the incident occurred. I remember seeing these sites of celebration both overseas and in this country, and I was astonished. Overseas, I didn't expect anything less from a bunch of Muslim animals. I was a little bit surprised by Muslims in this nation that I thought were wanting to become part of the fabric of America, but they didn't, and they were celebrating. So the fact that the police department couldn't uncover anything to substantiate that doesn't mean it didn't happen. And they are Muslims, and Muslim boys are taught by their fathers and by their mothers to emulate Muhammad. Remember, he is the paragon of all virtue within the Islamic faith. The Qur'an says that he is the spokesman, can't say person, that might be gender neutral. He is the spokesman for Allah, the God that he has elevated to number one godhood, and that all Muslims are to emulate him. And despite the fact that Muhammad had many wives, many concubines, many slave women, he was pretty much a woman hater. He didn't have any problem with using them. He was a sexual degenerate and a sexual deviant, but he liked using women, but he didn't like them. Now, I know that's a contradiction in terms. We'll talk about it some other time. Twin Falls County Prosecutor Grant Loebs argued the rape allegations were misreported by social media and other news outlets that targeted the boys as Syrian refugees. Okay, is it side A or side B of the same coin? They're Muslims. There have been a lot of controversies, as you know, in the nation and in Twin Falls County in particular, because we have a refugee center here, Loebs explained. To my knowledge, there have been no Syrians settled in Twin Falls County. Whether that is true or not, there are no Syrians involved in this case. Following the statements by Chief Kingsbury, Twin Falls residents addressed the city council. Coexistence does not exist in our country, a man from Jerome explained. A woman approached the podium and expressed anger toward the alleged perpetrators. I am a red-blooded American. If they don't follow our rules, they need to get the hell out of my country, she explained. The court records of the assault are sealed. And that's a brief KIVI report on that. You know, one of the problems, besides the obvious, of bringing a nation of people into another nation, and Islam is a nation unto itself, regardless of where it is. Remember, as I explained to you, their religious practice that is dictated by Qur'an is only 14% of the whole picture. But Islam is a nation unto itself. And Muslims truly feel, especially men, feel that wherever their foot rests, that is their kingdom, because they are the superior religion on the face of this earth. All right, this is an interesting article by Michelle Malkin covering this very thing. It's a little lengthy, so I'm not going to try to cover the whole thing, but I'm going to just topically. This is June 22nd, not that long ago. Horror and hush-up in Twin Falls. Something wicked happened in Idaho's rural Magic Valley. The evil has been compounded by politicians, media, and self-interest groups doing their damnedest to suppress the story and quell a righteous citizen rebellion. On June 7th, a brief news item appeared on local Twin Falls, Idaho-based KMVT about a reported sexual assault that possibly occurred near the Fawnbrook Apartments 5 days earlier. Unconfirmed accounts of the alleged crime on conservative-leaning websites, plus reports from area members of anti-jihad activist Bridget Gabriel's Act for America group, and longtime watchdog Ann Corcoran's Refugee Resettlement Watch blog culminated in coverage of the Powerhouse Drudge Report. The social media groundswell, untethered from the constraints of political correctness, forced government authorities to respond. Originally, they didn't want to. They wanted to just, as these condescending pukes on their city council, as they were looking down their nose at this one guy who was the first to bring it up, they were very happy to just sweep it under the rug. After all, we have the Chobani factory here, and we're going to become a wealthy city. So don't make waves. Police and the local prosecutor's office grudgingly confirmed that an investigation had begun into the incident. The victim, now listen to this, the victim, a mentally disabled 5-year-old girl. The alleged perpetrators, 3 boys, ages 7, 10, and 14, from Sudanese and Iraqi immigrant families, predominantly Muslim, who have been in the country for less than 2 years, all but confirming that they are refugees. What happened? The case is under seal because it involves minors. The prosecutor, Grant Labes, said there's a videotape of the alleged sexual assault, a fact that local activists first divulged. 2 of the boys are in custody. It's not clear what happened to the 3rd. Here's the sickening thing. The people who should have been asking tough questions, like, mainstream journalists, have spent more time attacking local whistleblowers and bloggers than they have spent demanding answers and holding public officials accountable. And folks, if something this horrendous happens here, I hope we have the courage to hold our local officials who have been pandering to the Muslim community. I hope we have the guts to hold them responsible and accountable. Going on, why the cover-up? Consider the backdrop. Residents in Twin Falls have been worried about the impact of an increasing influx of refugees, many from jihad-coddling countries, over the past several years. Their concerns about crime, welfare, health care, and schools echo those of communities across the country that are bearing the coercive brunt of Beltway bleeding hearts refugees resettlement policies enacted in a shroud of secrecy. Members of the Twin Falls City Council smugly likened refugee resettlements critics to white supremacists. So if you see this 5-year-old child being raped and you say anything, well, you're some kind of a white supremacist because you had the audacity to notice. What if a black man had seen it? What if an Hispanic saw it? Are they white supremacists? No, but if you're a white man, remember, politically correct, you don't have anything to say about anything. You're obviously some kind of a white supremacist. Regional newspapers, including the Idaho Statesman and the Spokane Spokesman Review, rushed to discredit the on-scene reporting of internet writers such as Leo Holman, who had interviewed a witness to the crime for WorldNet Daily. Jolene Payne, an 89-year-old retired nurse who lives at the complex, told Holman that she spotted one of the boys taking pictures with a camera outside the apartment complex's laundry room. She went inside and found the 5-year-old naked with 2 of the younger boys naked standing over her. The worst thing was the way they peed all over her clothes, she recounted. And it goes on. So once again, dear sweet Idaho is in the international news. And once again, the usual suspects are busy running to give cover. All right. The June 22nd, Idaho Democrats' new platform leans left. Oh, really? When did it lean anything other than left? Do you mean, and this by Sydney McFarland, I think she means leans further left than usual, like it's maybe going to fall over. Idaho Democrats have a new platform modeled mostly after the platform Senator Bernie Sanders ran on during his campaign to be the Democrats' presidential nominee. Delegates approved the new platform during the state convention in Boise. It's expressing a sentiment of a good deal of delegates and a good deal of the population, said Idaho State University Vice President and Delegate James Fletcher. Sanders ran away with Idaho's primary in March, winning 78% of the vote to Hillary Clinton's 21%. This earned Sanders 18 delegates to Clinton's 5. Sanders even gained the majority of Idaho's superdelegates with 4, including Idaho's Democrat Party chairman, Burt Marley. Pardon me, pledged to him as opposed to Clinton, so on. So in Idaho, minimum wage, public education, and affordable health care Cornerstones of the Sanders campaign were the biggest additions to the platform. In other words, the usual giveaway socialist programming. More money for the schools. The kids aren't getting any smarter. Well, the kids are smart. They're not being any better educated. But we have to throw more money into this cesspool of education that is accomplishing nothing except turning out kids that aren't even qualified to earn minimum wage for the most part. And affordable health care. Got to make sure those illegal aliens get as much as everybody else. Even here in Idaho, there are something like 78,000 now that have been identified, and our good old Republican government's not going to do anything about it because they're too valuable to the farmers and to agriculture. Well, anyway, some thought the minimum wage should be $15, while others wanted $12, said Fletcher. With health care, the discussion was over implementing single-payer health care or building on the Affordable Care Act. In other words, making us completely dependent upon the federal government. Other aspects adopted included public education as an investment in the future rather than expense. I love the Democrats are so good at coming up with these bogus statements. It's an investment, it's not an expense. Well, it's only an investment if it pays dividends. And if the kids can't even read and write when they come out of school, what's the dividend for us? Nothing. Then we're going to have to put them on the welfare rolls or in some other capacity to feed and house them because they can't read and write. But they will know about transgenderism. They will know about personal identity and gender identity. They'll have that locked in. Did you see this article? It was just a brief, well, not too brief, but it's kind of heart-wrenching. I don't know how many of you have been up to the new Portland Health Complex. I took a walk around there today. By the way, I clocked it, and it's about a 1.5 mile walk. It's an easy walk, and it's a good one. Beautiful up there. They've really done a fine job, spent a lot of the Portland money to put that in there, and then they gifted it to the county. So you and I can pay for it. But that said, it is beautiful. Well, now, as might be expected, sadly, vandals have decided to descend upon it. And of all things, let's see what they say here. People aren't following the rules and regulations such as smoking or keeping dogs on a leash. And I had noticed that several times, my wife and I going by there for breakfast or whatever, we would see people out there with their dogs, just like you see them in your neighborhood. They're walking the dog, except the dog's not on a leash. And the dog goes wherever it wants to, does whatever it wants to, wherever it wants to, and their master just turns a blind eye. Oh, he's not pooping in my yard, what do I care? Well, we've been seeing them up there. If you've seen them, I've seen them, and you probably have too. People aren't following the rules and such, and somebody's been moving the rocks, the decorative stone around there. Somebody's been moving that. I don't know why they're moving the rocks, which is part of the landscaping and erosion control. In addition to finding cigarette butts all over the complex, they found leftover fast food and Tupperware containers, dirty diapers, and water bottles littering the beach. So, I don't, now this is county property, and I seriously doubt that PPD is going to patrol it. They could. I mean, there's nothing preventing PPD from patrolling it. It is county property within the city limits. But it is county property, so I'm really hopeful that the Sheriff's Department is going to have a regular patrol up there. Oh, and by the way, while I'm thinking about it, as I was taking my walk today, the sprinklers came on, and it occurred to me, somebody's not really thinking it through, or I'm missing the point. Why are they putting the sprinklers on during the daytime when all of the water will simply evaporate away and do little, I mean, there's a lot of grass up there. That means a lot of water is being expended, water in our reservoirs or wherever we get it that we're paying for. Why are they not watering during the nighttime when it's cooler, when the evaporation would be a lot less? Not only that, but by watering in the daytime, the grass is wet, you can't go sit on the grass. Well, what'd they put all the grass in there for? You can't play sports on it, you can't sit on it. What's it there for? Just for decoration? I don't think so. So I have a suggestion for the county council or supervisors or whoever. Take a look at that and think about maybe doing your watering at night when it won't interfere with people having sports activities or wanting to sit on the grass and have a picnic or whatever. And the water evaporation is a lot slower, and so we'll get more bang for our buck. We're putting gazillions of gallons of water on that anyway. Just a thought. Okay, another article. Fox News article about the alleged rape in Twin Falls. Okay, Michelle Bachmann was, as you know, a very solidly conservative Republican representative in the House of Representatives for a number of years. Well, she's called for a complete shutdown on mass immigration into the U.S. and has harshly criticized the jihad-linked Council on American Islamic Affairs, also known or Relations, also known as CARE, a clever acronym, CARE. For complaining that the sexual assault of a 5-year-old Idaho girl at the hands of Muslim males has become a lightning rod for anti-Muslim and anti-refugee sentiments. Now, this is the classic ruse that the Muslims have pulled for 14 centuries. They invade a country, the country resists, beat the crap out of them, send them packing, and then the Muslims complain about being abused. This is 14 centuries of history, and here they are once again complaining about, you're picking on us because we're Muslims. No, they're talking about the fact that your Muslims are doing filthy deeds against babies, and it's got to stop. That's what this is about. But CARE, always ready to jump right in there and defend their Muslim stuff, you know. In a Thursday Facebook post, CARE issued a statement on the child sex assault. This is CARE's statement. Anti-Muslim agitators and those opposed to resettlement of refugees from the Syrian civil war nevertheless seized on the incident to buttress their arguments for shutting down a refugee center in Twin Falls to prevent entry by displaced Syrians. Ibrahim Hooper, spokesman for the Washington-based Council on American Islamic Relations, said the Idaho sexual assault should be fully investigated, but added the case had become a lightning rod for anti-Muslim, anti-refugee sentiments. These two forms of hostility seem to be overlapping and reinforcing each other. Our hostility against the Muslims who have built thousands of mosques in this country, hundreds or thousands of madrasas where they teach their degenerate religion to their children, basically which is supplant the Constitution and the Judeo-Christian way of life with Islam and Sharia, and yet they accuse us of being the bad guys. It's always that way. Bachmann counters that CARE works hard to redirect attention from horrific crimes committed by Muslims to Islamic-friendly propaganda. CARE is a known Muslim Brotherhood front group. Muslim Brotherhood is part of Obama's circle of friends, heavily infiltrated into the ISIS safe house known as the White House. And they are a virulent spokes agency for the Muslim movement, as well, jihad. I introduced a bill when I was in the U.S. Congress to designate the Muslim Brotherhood a foreign terrorist organization. And it goes on and talks more about this attack on this little girl. All right, you remember last week, June 18th, Pastor Dinger, full disclosure, he's the pastor of the church where I attend church, Grace Lutheran Church, a godly man and a well-educated man in my opinion. He wrote an op-ed, if you will, for the religious section, the faith section of the newspaper, talking about what happened in Orlando. Well, wouldn't you know it, the usual suspects climbed out from under whatever rock they were shading themselves under. In this case, Helen Delahunt Avila. Now, Helen Delahunt Avila thinks of herself as being the all-knowing, super progressive, liberal spokesperson of the left, I guess. She's a fairly well-educated woman. I think she's one of the so-called educators at ISU, but she takes everything from the left. Pastor Dinger's article was well received by the community, and of course, I have a bias there because I attend the church. I believe in him. I know him. I believe in I know his heart, but Avila took exception with his very well-written article. Let me read you her article that she just couldn't stand but had to do 4 days after he wrote his article. Grace Lutheran Church and the Orlando shooting, I see that the spiritual leader of Grace Lutheran Church was horrified by the Orlando shooting, as we were all. Yet as he criticized those who were politicizing the event, he took the opportunity to politicize the incident by pushing his personal agenda on other political issues that had little or nothing to do with this horrific event. His comments included references to abortion, gun control laws, and judgmental criticism leveled at the spokesperson of the LGBT community's reactions, all while berating the hateful reaction by other religious leaders when they directed their caustic remarks toward the LGBT community. Well, Helen, you can't have it both ways. Either he was castigating this minister that was foaming at the mouth, anti-LGBTQ, or he was supporting something, but you can't have it both ways. Let's see what he actually said. Stating in here, I'm also horrified, one of the paragraphs, that within moments of the media sharing of these events, national political leaders immediately take the opportunity to politicize the event and call for either far more stringent gun laws or call for the almost indiscriminate arming of the population. That's a fact. That's what happened. And he was just as alarmed by that as he was by the other politicizing. I'm also horrified that a leader of the so-called Christian ministry was captured spouting violent rhetoric against the gay population and the LGBT lifestyle, essentially celebrating the deaths of gay people in the name of God. So I guess, Helen, you weren't satisfied that he made this statement about this priest, this minister? What else was he supposed to say? Was he supposed to break out the LGBTQ flag and wave it in support of their agenda? I don't think he was doing either one. I'm also horrified that while the media delighted in reporting the previous story, the shooting itself seemed to prompt an outpouring of even more vile rhetoric from the extreme wing of Islam, dozens of which have been making their viral way around the internet. Well, so she apparently didn't like the fact that he mentioned what was obvious to everybody. The good reverend, and that is a condescending, down your nose, up your keister way of her starting this paragraph. It was deliberately meant to be condescending and disrespectful. The good reverend appears to be especially upset that the Missouri Synod of the Lutheran Church, an extreme conservative branch of which Grace Lutheran is a member. Well, Helen, let me set you straight. I don't know what faith you are, other than perhaps yourself or your progressive agenda, but the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod is actually considered to be rather moderate. There is a more conservative part of the Lutheran Church in the Midwest, especially. They are even more conservative than you think we are, and there is a very much more liberal. Right here in the Good Shepherd is a very liberal part of Lutheranism that is the other end of it, so to speak. We, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, is somewhere in the middle. They're the largest synod. They are not politically active. They are very supportive of family, in the traditional sense, very pro-life, but they are not political. They don't get out there and beat the drum in the political circles. Apparently she didn't like that, so she calls them a bunch of extremists, which I might point out, Helen, whenever you point at somebody, you've got at least 3 fingers pointing back at yourself. Extremist? Yeah, Helen, you might fit in that category. So anyway, she said he was upset that he did not receive enough kudos from the news outlets for the 12 comfort dogs they supplied to those affected by the shootings. Well, now isn't that something that she would take umbrage of that? What Pastor Dinger had noted in there was no mention made of other things that were there to try to help these people to get through this horror, one of which was the 12 comfort dogs that were sent by the Missouri Synod Lutheran Church to help comfort these people. No, she decided to make something nasty out of that, something low. And in her typical fashion, where she is all-knowing and all-seeing, she had to denigrate this good deed by our synod as being something that she didn't think that it should have any mention, and she wanted to slam. It's obvious that her article was a slam article. It was meant to slam the church, slam Pastor Dinger, for other reasons. Let's see what else she said. Grace Lutheran is known for its absence from this community's interfaith organization gatherings, a concerned assembly of religious leaders from every denomination working together to unite the community. By implication, she would make it sound like the Lutherans are not part of it, and that they're working against that. And it's meant to sound that way. Here again, she, for whatever reason, she has a problem with the church. I suspect is because the church does not change their doctrine to suit people like her. I suspect it's because the church does support marriage between a man and a woman, does support bringing babies into the world, healthy or otherwise. I suspect that she's got a problem with that, and so she's decided to take this time. The only thing she had to do at this time was to write this article to denigrate the letter by Pastor Dinger. Being a united community is difficult, but Grace Lutheran chooses to not participate and is divisive with its exclusiveness and one-sided political stance. Really? What political stance is that, Helen? You mean that they don't sound like ravenous Democrats like you? They don't sound like spittle-producing progressives like you? Is that what you mean? No, they don't. There seems to be no room for others in their closed religious society. Well, Helen, in spite of your despicable column here, you're welcome to the church. You're welcome to come up and attend services with us. I suspect that you would find a lot of people that may not agree with you, but that would still show love and compassion, even to you, after this despicable letter. I did not know the horror of the Orlando shooting was an appropriate vehicle for personal and political attacks concerning his hand-picked topics. Attacks, Helen? The only attack that has been made is your attack, your despicable and vicious and virulent attack against this good man of the cloth, simply because you don't like the way he thinks, I guess. Well, I had more to talk about. I was going to announce the betrothal of, let's see, we're not going to be able to do it, William Clegg and Christopher Cole. That was in today's paper, or yesterday's paper. And Billy Johnson is marrying the woman of her dreams. I was going to talk about that. Maybe we'll talk about it next time around, but we're out of time. God bless you. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, pray for Israel, pray for our nation, pray for the needs of our children. In the meantime, have a blessed Independence Day, also known as 4th of July. Be careful, don't hurt yourself. God bless you and yours. We'll see you next time. Remember, there will be a replay on this. We will not have a live broadcast next week. Good night. Thank you.